Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome today to our webinar series from the Green Inclusive and Climate Smart Finance Action Group hosted at the European Microfinance platform. We are very happy to have you today in our third webinar with Geert Schuite. He's a manager inclusive green finance at Palladium Europe, formerly from Enclude. And today we have a very interesting webinar, and I said before with a perfect title, Environmental, Social and Governance Criteria, One Size Fits Nobody. So how it follows is that I will first do an introduction of the action group, what is our mission, our achievements and activities that we're currently doing. Then I will show you about our webinars, and then Geert has the word to give his presentation. We will have 30 minutes presentation and then 30 minutes discussion. And in this occasion, we are really hoping a very lively discussion. So the Green Inclusive and Climate Smart Finance Action Group is a multi-stakeholder think tank. It's unique in its conception, working entirely in the topics of environmental responsible inclusive finance. It has over 7 years and hosted at e-MFP, and we have over 60 members with different levels of engagement representing more than 40 institutions. Together with Davide Forcella, we lead and coordinate the activities of the action group. And our objectives are to discuss the challenges and strategies, enhance the knowledge, foster this action and cooperation, and develop dedicated tools such as the Green Index that you have seen before and participated in our webinars, and also disseminate findings of results, and also do this kind of disseminate knowledge to the sector as it is this webinar. Our achievements is the development of the Green Index, namely the standards for environmental performance assessment for financial service providers. We have developed also a catalog of green energy products for microfinance institutions, conducted several events, trainings, also have a range of publications and e-learning on these topics. And since 2020, we have been conducting a series of activities. The main one and most important is the development of the Green Index 3.0 and Dimension 7 of environmental protection from the universal standards with SPTF and also CEDIS. We are developing also an online library, which is ready to launch. We are just looking for the date to do the official launching for you. We have a publication, working on publication state of the sector and working on the newsletters for our members and the sector. And we are doing an IT tool webinar series and meetings matching supply and demand in green inclusive finance. In our webinar series, not everyone is invited to contribute. If you are working on these topics, you can have the possibility to share with everybody the results. Our next webinar is on February 18th, Microfinance and Transformations to Sustainability, Insights from Action and Research from Frederick Hybrids. And if you would like to participate, the next webinars available are in April with 2 modalities, whether 45 minutes or 15 minutes, and then discussions. It's up to you. Remember that all this material will be uploaded in our website and also will be recorded and available to the audience. So now that we will start with Geert, important for you to know is that he will focus on rather the processes rather than on the content of the tools. He's an excellent exponent, so I think you will enjoy this webinar. And feel free to write down your questions in the chat. We will answer them after he's done. And now I wish you that you enjoy his presentation. Geert, the virtual floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Natalia. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
All right, thanks. So as Natalia said, I don't want to go too much into the depth, into the detail of the standards and the environmental aspects. I want to talk this time more a little bit about the procedure. And I want to tell you that if I buy shoes in a running shop and I buy shoes, then the shoe seller does not sell me the shoes only if I promise to participate in the Olympics. The shoe seller also wants to sell me shoes if I say I want to run to be healthy and to challenge myself to become a better runner. And maybe in the end I will become an Olympic runner, but that's not the purpose. So what I'm trying to say is that when you try to run towards getting up to speed with an environmental standard as a financial service provider, then what you actually want to do is to get to the optimum amount of the achievement that you want in environmental management, optimal for the FSP in their context. And maybe they want to be in a good shape or in a great shape, environmentally speaking, or maybe they want to even compete in the environmental Olympics. But that's something that we need to explore. We cannot just say everybody who starts doing an environmental, wants to implement an environmental management system has to go to the full end. It depends. So that's what I want to discuss with you today. And while I say one size fits nobody, it is of course important to have a standard or a structure or a taxonomy as a reference. And Natalia already mentioned the Green Index 3.0 and the universal standards, where we are working on integrating a green standard or an environmental management standard as well. That's something that we will talk about in the end, and those Olympic standards are something that we need to keep in mind. So that's our benchmark all the time. Now, let me start with an experience that I had working in 2019 in a project for IFAD. We were doing a training in 7 countries in East and Southern Africa. This is one, you see a picture of one of the trainings. And what these people are doing, these are all representatives from FSPs, from financial service providers. And we asked them, do this self-assessment and then share it with the rest of the participants. So that's what they are doing here. And they show, every institution is showing how they are performing related to climate, environment, and social performance. And we said, just mention if you have a vision and mission that addresses these 3 issues. If there is attention at leadership level, if your staff is aware, you have a dedicated function in your organization, if you have procedures and tools, products and services, and do you monitor and report on climate, on environment and social performance. So that was the, let's say, the starting question of this training. And when we did the training with 100, and no, not 100, but approximately 55 FSPs, more than 100 participants, but representing 55 FSPs. This is the outcome. So the result of that exercise, that self-assessment, shows us that most of these African FSPs, they are addressing in one way or the other their social performance. That's the red bars. So the red bars indicate the level of implementation according to themselves related to social performance. And the green bars are questions around environment. And we have specified some questions around climate. So you can see that their climate approach to climate on vision, mission, leadership, etc., is much less than environment, and that's much less than social. So the good thing is that social performance is pretty well taken up by these organizations. Now, my question, the central question of what I want to talk with you about is it our ambition, or is it the ambition of an investor or a partner of one of these MFIs to get everything up to 100? Is that what we are trying to do? To get everything, to get all these bars up to 100? And I think that the answer is it depends. So let me explain that to you. So if in a very basic linear function of an FSP, financial service provider, you can see that they focus on clients and provide services to those clients and then exit. And that's their, let's say, their basic business model. Now, when they do these activities, they check for risks before they engage with the client. They want to know what the risks are. And for that, specifically for the social and environmental issues, they usually have, or we want these FSPs to have a structured approach, an environmental social management system, or some structured way of looking at these risks. And for instance, the social and environmental risks may include climate, waste, water, energy, emissions. We want to know from our clients how much the impact is that they are having, and we get more into detail on those content questions later on. But what I did initially, I found myself supporting the same actions as if I was repeating in every FSP the same kind of structure based on, you know, the ultimate ISO or IFC performance standards approach. And but of course, then I realized and I saw and I found that MFIs, FSPs, they are diverse. They are in their business model, ambition. So in other words, the actual way to approach risk management and environmental and social management depends on what the actual ambitions of the leadership, of the entrepreneur, of the owner of the FSP is, and also what kind of stakeholders do you have? So what are your investors, for instance? What do they request from you? Or you can look at what's going on in your market. What are the demands and the trends in your market? What are in your country the legal obligations to follow with relation to looking at environmental and social management? Or how do I relate to the Sustainable Development Goals? Or what's my business model? In other words, my context as an FSP, as a financial service provider, dictates or informs how I look at these risks. And this is what I mean with, if we look at the standards out there as the Olympic, the Olympic gold medal, then we are not all in there for getting an Olympic gold medal. Some of us are in there, some of the FSPs are in there to keep in shape and to ultimately improve, of course. But this is something that I want to explain to you using 3 different tools that we have worked on in the past years. The first tool is the Fmo Sustainability Guide. That's a tool that we used as part of a training for microfinance institutions in 2009 for FMO. And you can still find and download that tool on FMO's website. There's a link there, and you'll find that in your when you get the slides. And the point was that FMO said we do a lot of training. We train our partners, but we hear often from microfinance institutions that training is not fit for us. So in other words, we need tools that are dedicated for these microfinance institutions, and that's how we made these sector fact sheets that are often referred to for using by microfinance institutions. Now, I'm going a bit quick, but we can go back later if there are questions. So that second example is the green performance agenda, and this is the heart of my presentation, not so much for the tool as such, but for the principle that's behind it. This is a tool that is using that notion of context, and the tool works as follows. So there is a structure in the green performance agenda that you can also download. That is that we have included, or we use 20 assessment questions about your performance we call today. So this is the performance assessment, if you want, following the green index questions as much as possible. And then we have, in addition, 10 questions about your ambition. What is it that you really want? And then we have some tools available and cases also available. But the essence is here in the gap between today and tomorrow. The gap between today and tomorrow is the priority that you want to address, or the materiality issues that you need to address. And we do that by, and I'm just paging through a few user interface, some pages of the actual tool. So there are questions, you can imagine there are a set of questions that you can answer, just like in the SPI 4, in the green index. And then you get an outcome. It's not a spider diagram, but something like that. It is something that tells you whether you are in a beginner stage or already a little bit advanced, or even advanced, or it's fully integrated into your organization. So that is the current status. And then we have questions about tomorrow, about what is it that you need and what is it that you want, based on legislation, ambition, the things that we just saw. What are your investors? What are the trends? Are your clients affecting the environment or affected by the environment? Do you see opportunities for green products? Are there subsidies? So these questions do not so much talk about your situation today, but the ideal situation later on. And I can share with you this example of two different financial service providers, A and B. The A service provider in blue, you see that from a let's say a scale of beginner, basic, intermediate, advanced, and integrated, you see that the orange points they give where they are at the moment. So this is how they score today. This is their score of the green index, if you want. And the red dots, they provide information on what's my ambition, what do my investors want, what about my legislation. That is where they actually need to be. So their current needs, or the materiality of these two institutions, show you two things. First of all, they're both different in terms of where they are at the moment and in terms of where they ambition to go to. And the other thing is that they do not necessarily on the short term want to be fully on top of everything. They don't want to be fully integrated. They're fine with being intermediate at the moment as it relates to external risks, for instance, if you look at FSPA. But FSPB, they say we are now at the basic level of performance related to our current performance, and we need really to go to integrated, because that's what our stakeholders want. And the little dots, by the way, are the individual answers. In FSPB, we asked 6 different people the same set of questions. So this is the this is where their questions ended up being. The last tool that I want to share with you is going back to that thing that we did with IFAD, the photo in the beginning, you remember. So, so here you see a matrix that shows where for climate, environment, and social performance topics, you can be either at a basic level below, that's getting started, or grow, level 2, or integrate, level 3. That's the names that we gave to these 3 levels that you can be. And in our working with these African financial service providers, we often said it, this is actually a turtle, an elephant. Are you a turtle? Are you an elephant? Or are you a cheetah? Do you want to, become number 1, or is it okay to stay at a medium level? Or how are you feeling when you are and maybe keep being a turtle? And we did that by helping them understand how to get from one level to the other. So if you are at the basic level, then you should not start doing too complicated things, but first start with the first steps. And the first steps are, you want to be sure that you are understanding what you're talking about, to prepare the organization, to make sure that the purpose of your organization is aligned and that you have commitment in the institution. Grow means that you want to get organized further, make an internal plan, understand what risks and opportunities mean for your actions, and start engaging with clients. And integrate is a level where you are integrating your activities in your core business products and services, and you start monitoring outcomes, evaluate, and report. And it's fairly okay if you say, I'm going to start monitoring already in an earlier stage. It's just up to you. So what we did is we designed our tools in different cards. So for climate, for environment, and for social, you can see each card represents a specific tool or a specific, let's say, fact sheet that helps you to address the issues at stake at that level. So you can clearly see that we have some 20+ tools that for each level and for each topic help you to create a solution. And what we did with our trainees in the training for IFAD is that we gave them specific assignments and questions around their practical situation, and we handed them these cards. And by using these cards, they could say, there is no one size fits all for every solution. We need to pick from a select set of solutions, the ones that are most relevant and meaningful for us, given this case or given our situation. So this is, in a nutshell, what we did using these tools. And it is not so much about the tools, the Green Performance Agenda, the work with IFAD, and the trainings with FMO that I wanted to talk about, but more the idea of having a gradual approach in your green performance. And as I said in the beginning, with this action group, together with Cerise and Social Performance Task Force, we are now working on this universal standards, getting a green element in there as well. So if I may come back to the Olympic Games, that new green index will be the Olympic standard, the Olympic flag for green. So going forward, it will be the benchmark, and ultimately the sector will adopt and implement these standards. In my opinion, it is important that an FSP implements them with intent and purpose in a way that's meaningful. That's my point, meaningful and relevant for them and for the stakeholders. So it shouldn't become a paper tiger. That's something that we see too often, and we have seen too often. Their running shoes, in my case, should not end up collecting dust in a locker. Instead, as a runner, I should stay motivated and keep running and improve my performance. And that's what this is all about. So that was my little presentation for you today. Thank you very much. And if there are any questions or other things, Natalia, back to you. You're on mute.
Yes, that's the sentence of 2020. You are on mute. Thank you very much, Geert. It was very nice and very pleasant to hear you. We are, in the last minutes, even more people have joined us. This session will be recorded, and also will be uploaded on YouTube, so you will have also the chance to revisit it again. And we will receive, you can post your questions on the chat for everybody here on the chat, or you can also raise your hand if you want to participate, and then pose the questions to Geert. I will say, Geert, that we were saying that you wanted to focus more on the processes rather than on the content itself of each tool, and now we have been talking about tools for over 3 months, and focusing on the new tool that will come, the Green Index 3.0 and Dimension 7. I think it will be good to share with everybody, like, what have been specific lessons learned that you have adopted from these tools. What has been integrated that you can share also from our joint collaboration, and the value of this self-assessment, if you can tell more about this.
No, well, I can just briefly say this, that I think that there is a lot of genuine interest and a growing interest among FSPs for doing this kind of thing. And when we started working with that IFAD project, and there are many other examples as well, if you ask any financial service provider for inclusive finance what's going on in terms of climate, they all say, we work with a lot of clients who are suffering from climate change effects, from weather change and so on and so on. And that is hurting our clients, and it is also hurting us. So we need to do something. And you saw in my little graph how little actually these FSPs are able to do in terms of addressing climate change issues and providing products and services for that. So I think the one lesson learned is that there is a tremendous amount of interest and positive engagement that is growing, that we see, and we need not just give these people let's say a standard to what they need to do, but we also need them guidance on what it means for them, how to implement it, and how they can understand what is relevant for them as well. So my main lesson over the past years is that most of the time I've seen the opposite, that if, for instance, an investor pushes through to a potential partner a system like this or a standard like that, and just push until you have the standard, and then we will transfer the money to you, then I have seen in many occasions that a financial institution is implementing this like crazy, trying to get to the Olympics, then ultimately get the gold medal, the money is transferred, and then they totally forget, they bet, and they forget about green or social. So I think it is very much needed to create partnerships and to make sure that we understand and that we make understand why these things are as they are and how they can implement them.
Yeah, this is very related to a question that poses Arpita, like who is at the end driving this pushing for a specific tool. But let's go back to just for the sake of respecting here the order of questions. I see a lot of people participating. And Yeah, so we have the first one from Nicole, who has been working on green finance for several years. Thank you, Geert, for the presentation of these interesting tools. And is the IFAD tool available as the other two?
Yeah, I'm going to share with you the PDF of this. It's actually, it's not, I don't know if you can see me. Oh, well, it's not a dynamic tool. It's just a version on paper, but I will share that with so that it can be downloaded from the site website.
Okay, so we will share, after sharing the recording, we will share also the tools and links. Zana asks, are the tools mostly yes or no, or do they allow for comments and observations?
The green performance agenda is yes and no. There's no quantitative, or sorry, there's no even quantitative, but also no qualitative information. It's just a like a quick check of what it is that you where you find yourself and what you can do. But that tool for FMO is much broader. There you can enter much more information, and this tool set of IFAD is actually just a bunch of tools that you can use. So there is no and I think so it's very comparable to what's currently happening if you do SPI4 assessment. So it's for your own learning.
Yeah, I think we can complement.
I see a question here on the definition of climate versus environment.
Yeah.
From Hans, and I think that's a great question. So IFAD asked us that, they said, we see this climate degradation as a very important thing happening around the clients of our partner financial service providers in agricultural sectors. So we want you to stress very much in your approach these climate issues, and then next to that also do all the other environmental issues like environmental risk management and assessments on water and waste and so on. But they wanted really to keep everything related to climate vulnerability and climate impact as a separate visible next to environment and social.
Yeah.
In the green index, it is integrated. Climate is integrated in the environmental management standard. Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to complete for Sana about the yes/no answers, that in the green index 3.0, it will be possible to give more profound, in-depth responses with observations, also quantitative indicators, and go deeper in the assessment. So these are like some advances or lessons learned that we have gathered for the development of the new tools. Arpita also asked, like, what are the biggest motivations of MFIs to get into the ESG journey, and from whom comes this driver? Geert, what has been your experience?
Sorry, can you repeat that question quickly?
From your experience, what has been the biggest motive or motivation from the microfinance institutions to get on the ESG journey?
Yeah. So obviously, initially, when we were in a very early stage, the driver was very much with investors or financial partners of FSPs. They wanted, so for instance, FMO said, if we partner with an institution, we want that institution to have a certain level of appreciate or implementation of ESG factors. So for any of their clients, that was the direct motivation. But going fast forward to now, I think that majority of FSPs, at least the ones that I speak to, are totally convinced that this is no longer an issue that they should ignore if there is no investor asking for it. It becomes more and more intrinsic to doing business as an FSP because they see climate change happening in Africa or elsewhere. They see their governments and they see international bodies and partners, and and microfinance institutions, let's say national institutions, are asking for these things. Just like social performance becomes part and parcel of their approach, now also environment becomes an evident element of that. Basically.
Yeah, so Stefan Plateau comments on the metaphor. So nice to see that you make the comparison with running. In the world of financial service providers and the interest in going green, we have fast and less fast runners, and even some who don't want to run and prefer to swim. The good news is that different tools are available to groom them in the art of becoming green. That's true.
Yes.
So the questions are, can you, based on your experience with the tools, indicate what kind of FSPs are most interested?
What kind of FSPs? Well, the letter that I mentioned, so the FSPs who see this as becoming more and more relevant are the ones that are, for instance, working a lot with agricultural clients who see the direct effects of climate change and weather patterns change and droughts and so on and so on. So those are the ones that are, you know, first in line. And then I think there are also others who see opportunities in their market, for instance, for financing green solutions or for access to energy or water or sanitation that are maybe also more urban. So there is a mix of FSPs who are, you know, first in line, and the larger ones are usually the ones who let's say the larger ones on general, I would say, are more advanced, but it depends also very much on who's the leadership and what vision does the institution have. Yeah, so that's my answer.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've been reading the questions from the chat, but let's take also the questions from the panel Q&A. So Carla from ADA, Carla Palomares, hello. The IFAD tool will be adapted to other environments, for instance, in Latin America?
Now, the IFAD tool is in principle a tool, apart from speaking about turtles, elephants, and cheetahs, but the content of those tools are globally adaptable, no, not adaptable, they are globally relevant already as they are. So Carla, you can take a look at them and see that apart from, there is maybe no Latin American elephant or Latin American cheetah, the content of the tools should be very familiar and complete even for Latin America.
Yeah, Govinda from Nepal, welcome. So here he's asking, it is very difficult to bring in action to board and management of profit-oriented FSP in climate, environment, and social issue. Is there any tricks and tips or examples to bring in same pace with full commitment?
Yeah, this is the big headache. Oh well, no, not a big headache question. It's quite simple. I mean, if these people who are for profit and they say this is nonsense, let's look at profit, then there is no convincing to do other than saying, yeah, you can earn money and blah, blah. So there are several arguments that you can use to say it is, you know, it can be profitable because you enter new markets, or you can develop new products and services, and you know, if you ignore, you will out of business in a couple of years. But for the strong-headed, profit-oriented FSPs, I think frappez toujours. I mean, go on and on, telling them and leave it up to them. They are the entrepreneurs, so it's their choice in the end. If they don't want to go in that direction, then maybe an investor is not interested in working with them because they don't see how this organization is addressing it. And fine, even, you know, we are still good friends maybe, but we are going in a different direction. So it's not, in the Netherlands we have this this expression to say that it doesn't make sense to draw on a dead horse. If the horse is dead, then you don't get him to another place, and that's it. You have to swallow the fact that they don't want to move, and if they want to move, then they don't want to move.
Yeah, on the other hand, we have, and also here with, I see many participants from the action group, that the success also depends on the motivation and intrinsic motivation
Yeah,
of management.
exactly.
And if Govinda, if there is need of technical assistance or of trainings or of more awareness raising, you can invite board and management to participate into these discussions and see like the relevance in committing to this. But yeah, not to push dead horses, as it will not bring that far.
Yes, to use the logic that Stéphane Plateau just mentioned, maybe these guys are not runners but swimmers,
Yeah.
which ultimately can also lead to a certain outcome as well. So we need to be creative.
Yes, coming back to the tools, and also Carla had more questions on the IFAD tool. What is the advantage of IFAD tool with respect to the green agenda performance, or in what context would you advise using one or the other?
Uh-huh. The Green Agenda Performance is a tool that is designed for a very easy a first assessment of where you are and where you need to go. So it is only 20 questions and 10 questions for where you need to go. And then you know where you need to go, you have your tools. And the IFAD can be, the series of IFAD tools can be used in addition to the Green Performance Index. And when you, agenda, and when you look at the content of these tools of IFAD, you will find that they are very much reflecting what is already also said in the Green Performance Agenda. So they are not two different things; they are the same thing, but you can use them in parallel or in concert.
Okay, I see like we can get some questions together. I'm very happy about this. There is a lot of interest on the tools. First to Nicole, who is asking about the review of the green index. So that as I think most of you have followed, that we have been doing webinars on the green index, and also like sharing to the sector on the current work that we are doing. Nicole asked if we have finalized this review, and if the integration, or mainly part about clients' vulnerability, will be the only change, or if there will be further changes. And and if there will be further changes, Geert, if you would like to share some news and updates on this, on the changes.
No, no changes on these tools. They are what they are, and you can download them, and there are no changes on these tools.
No, on the green index. So besides from the client's vulnerability assessment, the changes that we have been doing inside standards.
Yeah, so well, you can answer that as well, but I think that what we are working on currently is to make the green index and the 7th dimension much more granular to what it used to be. So you could see that the evolution of the green index was starting with a few basic questions, then the 2.0 was more elaborate questions, and now we make it much more let's say reflective of the differences between approaches in FSP. So there is much more granularity, and specifically in the green index with the proposed, or we are going to propose these quantitative indicators, much more possibility to go in depth into what's happening. And I want to also answer at the same time one question from Adriaan Loef, who that clients of FSP cause the actual impact on the environment in the real economy. How do your instruments suggest the FSP influences that? I think in the Green Index and in the new dimensions 7 of the Universal Standards, we have better and more integrated now first of all, the capturing of both the vulnerabilities and the impact of clients on environmental issues, so the vulnerability and the impact, and also clarifying much more how related to those impacts you are offering products, services, and support to your clients to prevent those impacts from happening and to really diminish them. So I think these clients indeed cause actual impact in the real economy, and the way FSPs can influence that is by using specific products and services, specific products, specific services, taking on board some clients and other clients not, having include specific clauses in contracts, for instance. Those are a few examples, but there are much more examples in the new Green Index that you will find that help FSPs address these issues.
I think this is related to the question from Guglielmo from Microfinance. Have you perceived misalignments between board of directors and management operational teams in terms of willingness to pursue environmental performance standards?
Yes, and then that's also a good point, because from my own perspective, from my own experience, I've worked closely together with institutions and people within those institutions, doing trainings and working to develop systems and approaches and let's say assessment tools and having everything in place. And everybody was super happy. I even got photographed when we gave our full-fledged work to the directors, to the board of directors, and everything is fine. And then a few months later, when I got in touch with my friends over there, somebody said, oh, he's no longer working in that position. He has been submitted to another position and he's no longer doing this. And the whole thing crumbled in. So there was no real commitment at top level, which is, of course, something I didn't do well. So I was under the assumption that the board wanted it. And so the management team was working with me very closely. And my afterthought was that I didn't do enough engagement with the top level people to really understand if they were enough, let's say, committed and aware of these things. Apparently not, and that was just, that happens. And I think it is very important in a process like this to make sure that everybody's aligned from top to bottom. And if you don't do that, you can easily, like I did, miss the opportunity to really get this implemented in an organization.
Yes, that's true. Also here, Ada with us could also share experiences about motivation all across an institution, which is key to succeed on these programs. I will go for the question from Hans. It has two questions. I'll go first on, however, under the ESG lens of investors, climate will be part of the E dimension, including the universal standards for social performance management. What was the motivation of IFAD to distinguish between climate and environment, pointing at CSG criteria?
Yeah, it was their motivation, as I said earlier, was really that they saw that specific climate-related questions or problems or challenges were seen from the field, from the FSPs that they worked with, specifically the farmers, and so they said, we want to have a training for our FSPs where this climate element is specifically, captured or looked at next to the classical, let's say, environmental risk assessment approach. So climate vulnerability and proactive engagement on climate issues was a specific demand and a specific need for them, and they wanted to visualize that specifically next to ESG. So indeed, this CESG, it was sounded throughout the project a little bit awkward, but that was what IFAD wanted, and that we also provided them with.
And the last, we have 10 more minutes, and so I guess I will gather these two questions from Hans, that it's also related then to a question on the green index from Nicole. So Hans asks if, so a strong motivation for FSPs to become more socially oriented because social and financial performance is positive correlated in most social performance aspects, except debt. The medium to longer term, as proven by the SPI database of cities. What about any correlation between environmental and financial performance?
Can I now ask if you or Davide can answer that, because you guys are more into that research, or if there's somebody from cities?
Yeah, so we have been doing research on the databases of databases or data gathered on environmental performance, but without any indicators on the financial performance, as only green index databases. So in this case, we cannot reply whether there is a specific correlation of whether an institution does better in environment also.
But is this something that we are pursuing? Is it something that is on the let's say on the radar of the action group?
Yeah, so we are pursuing first to guide institutions to go into green, like besides from the product catalogs that are already some products that we did some years ago. We want to do guidelines on how to go for energy lending, for the climate smart finance, for nature-based solutions, for WASH, and further products and services that help the institutions to develop their services and products. And whether we can ensure that this will have an improvement in financial performance, it is not our goal. But however, motivation to conduct or to implement this, to diversify their portfolio should be also from management, and that they see a strategy that also makes sense in their financial motivations.
I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think Cole is saying that, and I also recall that there is a study from MFR on that relation. I think, not sure how recent that is, but indeed, I've also seen that. So maybe we can find that and send a link.
Yeah, for sure.
Cole is not sure, by the way, but I also think that they did an initial survey on that. So let's find that out, because I think this is not something that we can, personally, my opinion is that this correlation is an obvious thing to want to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we conducted a study, I can't remember, in 2015 with quantitative and qualitative indicators from mixed market. And after that study, you conducted one for NPM. And what we saw was that there was an increase on the delivery of green loans. But there was no study comparing PAD or other financial indicators to those indicators. But here, we also have students attending at this webinar. If you still have topics for master thesis or further case studies, we are open also to guide and provide guidance on these topics. And Nicole is asking, I think it's important, this discussion for the green index, besides of the changes, or like this inclusion of clients' vulnerability is very important, but also the fact, and unfortunately Jürgen is not here with us, but that we are also aligning indicators from international standards that have been implemented in other sectors. Here, you are here, Jürgen. So so that we are aligning this or doing this mapping between other standards from B Impact, IRIS, MEBA, European Union taxonomy and seeing how are these indicators related to the indicators and standards that we are proposing in both the dimension 7 of the universal standards and the green index. And then from these, that each institution, as we said before in their self-assessment, that they can decide how deep they want to go in this assessment and see according to their responses and gap identified, how do they want to improve. So it's taking the lessons from the JPA, from the Green Performance Agenda, from the IFAD, that each institution decide, okay, this is the tool, this is my assessment, these will be my next steps. Whether we are going to implement social, and here is Mikol saying that we shouldn't forget the S of social, and if we are going to address this for the universal standards, no, I think there is already other dimensions that are tackling this aspect. That's why the dimensions of the green index are not directly tackling specifically a social component. However, what we have seen, not also Cecile, not sure here, or from CEDIS, with CEDIS and also from the action group, we did correlations between indicators and saying if there are indicators that relate to others and then indicators that relate to other dimensions. And we see that of course there are some that defining a green strategy also has to do with defining a social performance agenda for the institution. And no, we don't want to double assess, but we think that it's important still to measure leadership and strategy, to measure how the institutions assess the impact and the risks on environment, direct and indirect, of their clients and of their own. And then it will be also a study after we collect some data and after some implementations, also interesting for cities and SBTF, to see how these dimension 7 results are correlated with the other dimensions. Do we have, no, so we don't have more questions and we are exactly on time. Geert, would you like to share another message, or?
Am I still sharing my screen, by the way?
Yes.
Is it still the, what am I sharing at the moment? Anyway.
You can close if you want.
So. Yeah, I close. If I can do that. No, I appreciate having this conversation, and I think it is an important conversation to keep on having, and focus on what the perfect benchmark is, but always keep thinking about how organizations can truly work towards those benchmarks, because if we forget about that, then it becomes too abstract, and it must be something that that is going into a human scale of what it is that we are working on. So I appreciate this conversation, and I hope that we can have a follow-up sometime soon.
Yeah, so thank you to everybody to have attended to this webinar. If you'd like to join to the action group, feel free to contact Joanna, Davide, or me. Also, if you want to share your results, your projects, your questions in a webinar, also feel free to approach us. We are also having, besides of webinars, possibilities with podcasts, and also sharing news through our newsletter. And we will have a very intense first semester developing these guidelines and further publications, gathering what we have started with the surveys, and also this whole green index study and development of the dimension 7. So keep up. We will keep you posted with our news. The next webinar, February 18th, we wait for you here at 4 p.m. Thank you, Geert. Have a nice evening. And thank you, Camille, for setting up from e-MFP.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.